Alright, Military Handbook 201B, Military Standardization Handbook, Petroleum Operation Department of Defense, run Chapter 2. Chapter 2, Property for the characteristics of the use of the military fuels and lubricants. General, the principal property for the use of the petroleum with the fuel lubricated with the related with the product is described briefly and with the definition term of the described that these properties may be found with Appendix A. General knowledge of these properties are related to the specific product and will assist the personnel with the product identification necessary to safe handling procedures. 2.2. Test methods of their signifying the essential maintainment of the control of the quality of the great variety of the petroleum product with the supply system necessary to the subject of the product over the number of the tests, various stages of the manufacturing, storage, and distribution. Tests may be of two kinds: the design and the control quality of the product, with those given with the indication expected of the performance. Majority of the test methods used today in the United States with the standardization are publicized in the American Society of Testing Material, or ASTM, standing for the petroleum product with lubricants, which provide with a considerable degree of uniformity. Some standard test methods used by the federal government include military publication Federal Test Method number 791, whereas the ASTMA and the Federal Test Methods method standard number 791 test methods are identical. The ASTM test methods are used and are referenced with the federal government specification. This handbook will not attempt to furnish all of the details on the test method. The significance, however, the recommended those interested in such detail obtain a copy of the Army Technical Manual RM 10-1165 entitled Significance of ASTM Test Material for the Petroleum Products. 2.2. Principle and product. The principal product of the receipt of the store is used in the military installation for the Navy special fuel with the oil, Navy distillated fuel, burner fuels, diesel fuels, kerosene, aviation, automotive, gasoline, jet fuels, lubricating oils, greases, other related with the products and specification of these products are listed in the Defense Fuel Supply Center reference list specification standards for petroleum-related products. For example, for exact specification requirements and values, refer to the latest revision of the applicable specification, Military Handbook 200, Quality Surveillance Handbook of the Fuels, Lubricant, and Related Publics. That is Military Handbook 200, set forth as general instruction minimum procedures to be utilized with the quality surveillance of U.S. government-owned and fuel lubrications related with the products worldwide. Section 2, Fuels. 2.4 Fuel oil burner general and fuel oil burner. Fuel oils describe the other with those of the primary internal combustion engine. Shipping and handling of the fuel require the much attention for the more of the highly refined petroleum products to ensure they are delivered to the destination with a good clean condition. Following the general use of the following types of the distillated, both cracked and straight run, residual cracked and straight run, and blends of preceding type. The types of grades are fuel oil burner mill 59, general oil grade of the burner for Navy special, intended for the use of the steam-powered vessels of the Navy with the other government vessels are required. Fuel oil burner federal spec VVF 815 general. This type of the fuel is intended for the oil burner equipment for the generation of the steam for the other purpose of the federal specification provided with the 6 grades. Grade number 1, light distillated oil intended for the use of the burner with the vaporization type in which the oil is converted with the vapor contact of the heat surface by radiation. Grade number 2, a heavier distillated grade than number 1, is intended for the use of atomizing type burners, which you spray into the oil with a combustion with a chamber with the tiny droplets burning while in suspension. Grade 4, usually a lightly residual, sometimes heavy distillated, is intended for the burners equipped with a device for the atomizing oils of the higher viscosity than domestic burners can handle. The permissible viscosity range allows it to be pumped and atomized with a relatively low storage temperature, thus exempt from extremely cold weather, and requires no preheating or handling. Grade 9 or 5, light. Residual fuel intermediate with the viscosity of the burners capable of handling fuel more viscosity for the grade number 4 without preheating. Preheating may be necessary to some types of equipment with the burner with the colder climates of the handling. Grade number 5, heavy with the residual fuel more viscosity for the grade with the number 5 or light is intended for the similar to surfaces preheating that may be necessary to some types of equipment over the burning of the colder climates of the other handling. Grade number 6, a high viscosity oil that's sometimes referred to as bunker C, used most in commercial with industrial heating, with required with the preheating with the storage tank to permit pumping and additional preheating at the burner with permit with the atomization of the extreme extra equipment with the maintenance required with the handle of the fuel will usually preclude the use of small insulation Properties and characteristics. The most important property of the burner oil from the standpoint of the operation, viscosity, flashpoint, with the stability, with the compatible water, the sediment, with the flammability, the viscosity. Viscosity is more significant for the heavier grade than the fuel oils, is so for the lighter grade with the limits of the general set, for the help of maintain the uniform fuel flow of the appliance with the gravity flow, or to provide satisfactory atomization. Small nozzle of the household heating burner. Some burners are dependent on the fuel for the lubrication, where the minimum viscosity is specified with the heavier grades. Preheating is generally required for the control of the viscosity in order to provide good atomization given the type of the burner. In addition, with an equal and important maximum viscosity under existing conditions and temperature pressure be such that the oil is pumped and satisfactory from the storage tank with a preheater with a mini special is relatively free flowing high liquid with that can heat be stored and transferred in mild climates and little or no heating. Flashpoint. Relatively high flashpoints are pretty desirable for the handling and the using of burner fuel oils. The minimum permissible flashpoint is usually set by the various regulatory bodies for the base of the accepted practice for the handling and use. It may also be used to detect for the contamination of substantially low flashpoint, reliable indicator that the product has become contaminated with a more volatile products such as gasoline. Stability. Most fuels obtained with a simple distillation crude oil with the shape of the crude oil, which over the main derived with the cracked fuels oil with the fire first came into general use. The troubles with the thermal instability soon would develop. The most serious effect of this formation of adherent deposits of the oven. The oil heaters of the crack oils having their own molecular structure drastically rearranged for the cracking of the process continue with the undergo slow chemical with the chain with the after the have been cooled this change of the accelerated with the heating. This problem arises particularly where the fuel has to be stored with it for some time. Varies for the rest of the various tests have been devised for examining oil of this nature. Compatibility. Since prove the Navy special fuels over the compatible within one another, they should not be blended with the diesel fuel with the other product, which should be stored in tanks which are reserved only for the product with the stability of the compatible and may be seriously affected with the mixing with the diesel fuel, especially with the diesel fuel with the composed with the high paraffinatic stocks may cause formation of heavy deposits of oil preheated with the sludging of the fuel storage tank with the contamination of diesel fuel oil. The burner fuel oil is even more serious and cannot be tolerated, but the separate piping must be used for these two products to avoid such contamination. Water and sediments. For distillated fuel oils should be no problem involved in the contamination of the water and sediment. The heavier the grade of the residual fuel will usually contaminate the measurable amount with the one or both of the due to the nature of the product. With the addition of the storage, appreciable amount of the sediment results with the strainer blockage. The following with the burner tips and lines of etc. may cause the deposition suit with the formation of smoke with etc. Excessive water content caused by the careless handling of the accident during the marine shipment with the objectionable because of the foaming with the storage tank was heating. Relatively high temperatures necessary for the viscosity reduction when the water may vary from free water, which will settle out with the given sufficient time with the stable emulsions which will not settle out. Flammability. Because of their relatively high flash point with the burner, fuel oils are not flammable. They are warm during temperatures when the fuel oil stored with the temperature will below in its flashpoint and its vapor through combustible in the nature of the diluted the ignite burn. In other words, the vapor air mixture in a tank of fuel oil is temperature is sufficiently under flashpoint below the lower limited explosibility with the difference for the temperature of 15 degrees on flashpoints will usually provide the need for safety factor. However, to maintain a degree of safety, maximum precautions should be taken and avoid mixing volatile fuels such as gasoline, kerosene, etc. with burner fuels. Alright, 2.5. Fuel, oil, diesel. General. The diesel is used for the compression condition with the engine for the entering, with the engine for the atmospheric pressure for the oil force under, for the high pressure for the pump for the or below. The engine develops the power by the internal combustion in the same way that the gasoline engine, but it differs the way of the fuel is ignited. In a gasoline engine, the gasoline is mixed with the fresh air of the carburetor that ignited with the cylinder by an electrical spark. With the diesel fuel, it is being injected into a combustion space through an injection nozzle which breaks up the fuel into a fine spray and fuel vapor, which is ignited by heat of the air in the cylinder. The air obtained with the heat with the result of being compressed by the piston. Diesel fuels are to operate with the compression with the ignition of the engines of the submarine, the destroyer, the escort, the landing craft, the auxiliary equipment aboard large craft, as well as the buses, heavy trucks, tractors, railroad, diesel locomotives, stationary plants, and other auxiliary units. Type of the grades: federal specification VVF 800 fuel oil diesel, grade DF A. Arctic. The grade is intended for the high-speed automotive type of the diesel engine with the hot type of the burner space heaters in areas where the mean ambient temperature lower than minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit occur with the wear and impractical to obtain with the store of the diesel. Both diesel and burner fuels should not be used for slow-speed stationary engines. Grade DF1 Winter. This grade is intended for the use of high-speed automotive surface of the air with the ambient temperature is below minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Occur with this maybe used with a medium stationary engine application for the fuel heating of the facility not available. Grade DF2 with the regular with the grade is intended for the use of all automotive high-speed diesel engine with a medium speed application in the area which is ambient temperature is above 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Mill F16884 fuel oil diesel specification cover the marine diesel fuel oil suitable for the compression ignition engines, submarines, and shipboard operations of all temperatures with above 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Properties and characteristics. The most important property of the flash point because of the poor cloud point and cleanliness or water sediment in its ash contents, ignition quality with the volatile, the distillation sulfur with the content, the property of the fuel oils having a considerable influence with the performance of the reliability diesel engine summarized as follows. Flash point of fuel having an excessively low flash point, the dangerous to store and handle. The cost of the lubrication over the parts of the fuel injection point system depends entirely upon the fuel oil. There, its viscosity cannot be below a certain minimum value. Your pour point. This is our particular importance for the cold starting engine, the handling of the oil between the storage and engine of the diesel fuel that does not ordinarily have to be heated before use, but when the pour point is too high, some warning of this product may be required. Ash and sediment appreciable amounts of it is intended to cover the type of the trouble the burner mechanism. Our ignition quality with the property not only in terms of the ease of the ignition, but the starting with the cold engines, also kind of the combustion obtained with the fuel with a higher octane number, the easier of the starting with the even lower temperatures together with quicker, warmer up with the smoother, quieter operation and the lower maximum cylinder pressure with the most efficient combustion, volatility in order to follow low fuel consumption, low exhaust temperature, and minimum smoke. Small diesel engines demand higher volatile than do heavier engines. Sulfur content, low sulfur content is able to reduce corrosive effects of the harmful acids. Alright, 2.6, your fuel, Navy distillated, general Navy distillated fuel is Group 1 grade, with the distillated fuel is intended for fleet use and designation in marine power plants. Alright, your 2.7 kerosene. General kerosene is used for the space heating of the units with wicked fed flames of the bomb type flares with the wiping down with the certain machinery cleaning tools as the vehicle, the liquid insecticide sprays. Type of the grades. This is but one regulator with a grade with the kerosene carried out military supply system federal specification Hdbk 2111. 211. Kerosene prepared with the vehicle with the liquid insecticide spray with the deodorized with the kerosene covered with the federal specification Hdbk 200. Properties and characteristics. The most important parts of the property standpoint: operation of the burning quality, distillation, flash point. Burning qualities: kerosene should burn with a safe, clear flame with wick lamps when used with the stove with the vaporized with a completely, but not to the extent that it will form an explosive mixture in the air. Distillation: a good grade of kerosene generally has the boiling range of 300 degrees Fahrenheit to 572 degrees Fahrenheit, so that there's an absent of heavy ends with extremely high boiling point fraction that will interfere with the cleaning of the burning of the lamps of the complete vaporization stove. 3. Flash point. The absence of light ends with a very low boiling point fracture gives the kerosene relatively high flash point to be secure with the safety handling and storage and burning. 2.8. Motor gasoline. General motor gasoline used with the fuel and spark ignition internal combustion engine with the power motor vehicle with a combat vehicle with portable auxiliary power plants, stationary units, the fuel gasoline pressure application with the fuel stove with the heating of the units, the blowtorch. Automotive gasoline differs from aviation gasoline mainly with the volatility, anti-knock, and the vapor pressure for the property. With the cover these difference for the automotive gasoline and the aircraft is unsafe. National effort with the eliminate the pollutants gasoline contamination approximately to 0.5 grams a gallon in lieu of 4.23 grams a gallon have been phased out in the supply of just some low lead unleaded gases may be decommingled with the comparable lead fuels in the storage. Type of the grades: fuel federal specification VVG 76 with the gasoline. Automotive the gasoline is furnished in regular and premium grades. Each of these grades are further classified as A through E, with the volatile property of the difference make it suitable for the use for the condition of various climate and temperature conditions. Regular gasoline grade gasoline is intended for the general use of all motor vehicles with a gasoline line consuming stationary marine power plants, unless premium grade is specifically recommended with equipment the manufacturer. In term Federal Specification VVG 001690 Army MR, gasoline, automotive, low lead, and unleaded. The gasoline is similar to the VVG 76, except that the lead of the content is limited to the maximum of 0.5 grams per gallon. In addition, lower octane produced with the designated special grade produced for the use of the 1971 or later vehicles compatible for operating with a reducing octane quality gasoline. Federal Specification VVG 109 gasoline unleaded with low octane 62 ASTM motor octane maximum grade of the gasoline for the use of the stationary internal combustion engine combustion spark ignition engines as fuel gasoline pressure appliance. The specification MIL G3056 gasoline automotive combat gasoline is received with the one grade by two type with the minimized with the multiple grades of the military supplying system outside continental United States. Combat grade gasoline shipped in the overseas areas. Type 1 general all-purpose gasoline intended for the use of the combat vehicles in all temperatures above 0 degrees. A special low temperature all-purpose gasoline is intended for the use of the combat vehicles in areas where the mean low temperature is consistently lower than 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Properties and character of the most important properties from the standpoint of the operation volatile of the not characteristically of the content gum content but the sulfur content. Volatility of the gasoline usually measured with the temperature, vapor, pressure for the distillation, vapor for the pressure for the fuel, and with the term of the rapid vapor pressure test for the indicate the intensity of the fuel, the vapor of the vapor pressure, increase with the temperature for any of the given gasoline. Gasoline must have a certain vapor pressure for the ensure the proper starting accelerating qualities. Too high of the vapor or pressure of the particular with the operation condition may cause the commonly known as vapor lock, which prevents the fuel from reaching the engine. The intensity of the gasoline vapor out of the automotive fuel system is indicated by the vapor liquid ratio of the gasoline condition approximately to the critical point of the fuel system. The test is currently with the projection level with the conjunction with the read vapor pressure for the determination of the vapor property of the automotive gasoline distillation test. Measure volatile product with a low boiling fraction. Gasolines indicating starting ability of the engine with the given the temperature of the engine's ability to warm up quickly with the using with the gasoline excessive more highly volatile with the constitutes is in gasoline may cause the vapor lock conversely and an excessive amount of the heavy ends may not with completely burn with the combustion chamber. The consequently may cause the damage throughout the excessive crankcase dilution. Specifications is designated with the maximum minimum percent of the evaporated specified by the temperature as well with the initial and final boiling points of the products. A high end point with a high percentage of the residue may be indicated with the contamination of the gasoline with the fuel oil and other oils. Your knock value is normally expressed with the octane number of the automotive type of the engine. Gasoline the value is determined automatically comparing with the knock intensity of fuel. The laboratory standards for the test fuels known for the knock value with the standard test engine. Significance of the knock value indicate whether the fuel will tend to burn uniformly evenly on the cylinder without re-ignition detonation. Fuels inadequately known knock value will reduce the power output with all the type of the engines. If the use of the brief periods can cause overheating with the engine unit, the burn with the piston with the cylinder, for the lubrication failed with the even position piston and cylinder destruction. Alright, your lead content. The tendency for the gasoline with the knock of the degree for the addition with a very small amount of the knock inhibitor of the most commonly used the agent with the type of this tetraethyllead lead. Alright. Gum content. This cover the effect of the gum and the gasoline are complex for the prevent completely. Adequate definition means that the laboratory test gasoline all the types that generally have negligible gum contents with a freshly manufactured. Fuel may be in the storage under diverse climatic conditions. Before all of it is used unless it is properly with the blend and stabilizer agents of the slow oxidation. The objectionable amount of the gum may be formed during the storage. Comes specification for the military product, but therefore more stringent with the need of the normal civilization purposes because of long periods of storage under the diverse conditions more likely to occur during the military operation than ordinary commercial practice. Alright, sulfur content. It is important that the gasoline with the non-corrosive remain during the refinery processing objectionable sulfur compounds compounds removed to the greatest extent possible. Each fuel specification generally prescribes the maximum permissible level of the product for the combustion will contain compounds that are corrosive and then become corrosive in the presence of the moisture. Various methods have developed an ascertaination with the fuels and have corrosive potential, corrosive in tendencies. 2.9. Aviation and gasolines. Aviation gasolines use the fuel for the reciprocating piston-type gas engines used in the aircraft. The gasoline are satisfactory for the use of the motor vehicle because of the low vapor pressure distillation rates for the high tetroethyllead content. Type of the grade specification: MIL F5572. There are 3 grades: are 8087 dye red, 130 over to 130 dye green, 115 over to 145 dyed purple. Properties and characteristics. The properties of the aviation gas are similar to those described by the motor gasoline, except for the following: volatility of the aviation fuel is not very deliberately for the summer or the winter. Like motor gasoline, with the dissolution range of the same the year round, and the vapor pressure is always the same range from 5.5 to 7.0 per ounce per square inch. Tetroethyl lead content anti-knock additive is used at a much higher degree than motor fuels that to increase the anti-knock characteristics. Anti-knock characteristics of the aviation fuel of the characteristic indicated by 2 numbers. Low number such as 100 and grade 100 over 130 gives the anti-knock rating of the fuel well when used in lean mixtures such as those the aircraft with the cruising. With the high numbers of 130 gives the rich mixtures rating of fuels required with the wind when a plane is taking off with under accelerated power with the condition. The number that are above 100 are called performance numbers rather than octane numbers. For 130, the fuel equivalent of the fuel having 130% of the anti-knock rating is iso-octane. Alright, your jet fuels. General jet fuels used for the aircraft, turbine engines, ram jet engines, rocket engines, and other turbine-powered equipment. These fuels are derived from the petroleum and the gasoline, or gasolines, and but differ, but they do not contain the tetroethyl lead and not need any anti-knock characteristics. Because of the characteristics, jet fuels cannot be used with the reciprocating type of the aircraft engines. Your type of the grade specification: MIL T5624, grade JP4, used in land-based jet aircraft with other turbine-powered equipment. JP5, used the aircraft carrier with the aircraft to cover the high flashpoint fire safety characteristics. Also used the other turbines alternative fuel with the combustion ignition equipment with the shipboard boilers capable of the burning of the Navy distillated fuels. Property with the characteristics, the most important property with the flashpoint: JP5 normal only, vapor pressure; JP4 sulfur content, freeze point, wear out of reaction, thermal stability, and cleaning. Flashpoint: the JP5 must have the flashpoint above at a point of 140 degrees or greater in order to provide the safety factor required with the aircraft carriers. JP4 will flash temperatures as low, approximately minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Hence, the fuel must be handled with caution from a safety standpoint. Vapor pressure grade: JP4 engine fuel has a medium vapor pressure with lower than aviation gas because of the characteristic. JP4 grade jet fuel is dangerous to handle since flammable vapor air mixtures are formed at ambient temperature. In space above fuel grade JP5 that does not have vapor pressure requirement. Sulfur content. Also, the fuel oil, diesel fuels, and gasoline previously discussed. Freezing point with the fuels must have freezing points of the minus 72 degrees Fahrenheit with the JP4, minus 51 degrees Fahrenheit or below with the JP5. With the ice wax crystals precipitated with the fuel extremely low temperatures encountered during the flight of the high altitudes could cause clogging of the fuel stream, reducing engine full. Fuel starvation, flame out with to prevent such occurrence, and fuel system is icing inhibitor address for the JP4 fuel at the time of the manufactured additive of the active to prevent ice formation. Aircraft fueling system location: using military activities with the fuel system ice inhibitor into the jet oil to maintain necessary level of water reaction. Jet fuels must produce a sharp, clean separation mix with the water to give the indication that the fuels are clean without plugging the screen with the engine fuel system. Thermal stability of the property and can indicate the stability, the ability of fuels to withstand the high temperature of the encounter with the jet engine fuel system. The system they absorb excessive heat generated by the engine by flight speed. The coke produced by the thermally used unstable fuel will plug the engine jet. The manifolds cover the engine hot spot with a consequent engine malfunction. Alright, cleanliness. The jet fuels have the greater affinity with the water of the reciprocating engine fuel, separating the small solid particles in which the slower the jet fuels Reciprocating engine fuels. Jet fuels are also tend to loosen, rust, and scale with the storage tank. With the fuels are difficult to keep clean, extremely difficult to clean out one, so they become with the current contaminated current. Specification JP and JP4 and JP5 specific maximum of 1.0 milligram a liter solid contamination time of the procurement to ensure fuel cleanliness. The consumption rate with the jet fuel per engine hour is normally much greater than the reciprocating engine. Jet engine fuel controls are generally more susceptible to malfunction from contamination with the reciprocating engine carburetor. For these reasons, it's imperative to close the control to maintain over the quality of these products, fuels, and condition systems using handling them. Section 3, Chapter 2, Section 3, lubricating oils. We're going to cut the tape there.